Welcome, everyone, to Ladder Daily Digest. We honor creators, and today we have Dane Campbell on, who thanks for coming to the show.
Thanks for
Hey.
having me, Gene.
Hey, Dane, we appreciate you coming.
Nice to meet y'all, and it's great to be here. Thank you.
And Dane has a podcast, and go ahead and tell us the name of it, because I'm old, I can't remember things.
So, not a podcast yet. I do a YouTube channel. The channel name is Change with Dane, and it's really dedicated to offering people ideas and skills on how they can make lasting changes in their life, whether that's in thought and behavior, that can add to their peace, success, or happiness in life. So I've just kind of created this in the past couple of months, and it's been interesting to learn how to do it. And I think I have some good information to share. So Change with Dane.
I don't differentiate between podcasts and YouTube channels.
Okay. Someone gave me some feedback that I should do a podcast, and so.
That's weird. That's never happened before. Oh,
There you go.
I think changing the lights changed the mic. I don't know.
right?
Right.
Yeah, it's the
weakened it.
change. Yeah.
So I'll delete all this little bit, but I'll start out.
Sometimes it's good to delete it. Sometimes that's some of our richest moments.
That's right.
We've been talking about Satan, and all of a sudden my mic starts moving around. That's a little scary.
Yeah.
That's right. So, Dane, tell us a little bit about your upbringing. You grew up LDS, right?
I did, 100%. I grew up in a tiny town in southern Utah. The name of the town is Alton. And me and the 88 other people that lived there, very, very, very small, little ranching community. But church was absolutely 100%.
So there were 3 wards there then.
Well, yeah, we did actually have our own ward with 89 people. Church was in everything, right? School, government, day to day. It was everything for everybody. I think we had maybe 1 or 2, non-member kids that went to school with us. I actually went to school in Orderville, Utah, which is where Brigham Young tried to run the United Order for a little while. And just a very small place, very insular, protected community, zero diversity, absolutely. So
did you take a bus to school?
Took a bus to school, 30-minute ride to get there and 45-minute ride to get home, because it was uphill going home. So the bus was slow.
Just one way uphill then.
Yeah.
So it was like Napoleon Dynamite's bus ride, where everybody of every age is in the.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So
how many were in your graduating class?
25 kids in my graduating class. My claim to fame is I was, top of the class, but, I don't tell most people how many people were in the class. So, but the kids that started with me in kindergarten were pretty much the kids that I graduated with. So, almost like a little family there. So, and it's been that way for many, many years. It's not a lot of change there in our little community in southern Utah.
So you couldn't get away with much.
I'm sorry?
You couldn't get away with much.
Yeah, exactly. No, you couldn't. People knew what was going on. And, I've written a little bit about how there were no secrets,
Right.
Yeah. So neighbors knew what neighbors were doing. They would say that that's a good thing, right? Because that helps them support and raise you. But it's like you say, Randy, it's everybody kind of knew what was going on with everybody else.
Yeah, I grew up in a little farming community. And every now and then, one of the girls would disappear for 9-10 months. And then she'd come back, and we all knew exactly what had happened. And
yeah, like nobody knew what was going on there, right?
yeah, you couldn't keep anything from anyone. And mine was a little. It was Gilbert, Arizona, back when it was a
Okay.
little cow town. But
Yeah.
I understand the charms and the disadvantages of being in a little tiny town.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think probably one of the biggest challenges for me was just being isolated, feeling lonely. Uh, there was no other kids from my town in my class, with the exception of one non-member girl, and she was a girl, and so you didn't you weren't close to them really. So you're just a kid that starts working early for all the ranchers around, and you got your dog, and that's your friend, and so it was a very unique experience growing up. My family was great. I was the youngest of 6 kids, but my brothers and sisters were all quite a bit older, so I was kind of raised an only child. And by the time I came along, my parents were sort of like done with it, so I was kind of on my own. But I never really wanted to be a bad kid or do stupid stuff. So
So that
I
means you
often
were automatically president of the deacons quorum, teachers quorum, and
yeah, we all took our turn, right? The kid that was older than me and the kid that was younger than me, kind of just cycled through.
Yeah,
That's kind of the way it was. But yeah, it was a good growing up. But I suffered from a lot of shame and guilt. I know a lot of people do that. Those guys that were my bishops knew them too well. I was never telling them what I did behind closed doors, and so that oftentimes made you feel less than, or that you were really bad and not gonna make the Mormon dream come true because you couldn't fully repent. So I learned how to lie, and that was one coping mechanism that I had, was to be able to, get through the interviews and still maintain a little bit of autonomy.
Fake it till you make it, huh?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we've all done a certain amount of that.
I suppose being a ranch hand or farmer's helper, you might have felt a little bit like Joseph Smith.
I never found a rock and I never dug for treasure, but I guess, I did bale a lot of hay. I don't know.
Because we grew up understanding that Joseph Smith and his brothers were hard workers. They helped support the family through their labor, and we learned a little bit different story when we get older.
Absolutely. It was kind of cool though, because you'd work for these people for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. You get to know them. It was everybody raised everybody there. You were their son just like the others when you were working for them. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, and there was probably never a lack of work.
No.
Growing up on a farm, I know that there was never that time where there just was nothing to do. Did you have animals? Did you raise any animals?
My father wasn't a big farmer, but I always raised pigs and sheep, and we slaughtered those, or I showed them as part of Future Farmers of America.
You had the blue jacket with the gold patch?
I had a blue jacket. I was actually a state officer for Future Farmers of America.
Oh, wow.
So, is that the same as 4-H?
4-H was adjacent, but in my school, FFA, Future Farmers, Future Homemakers, those were the two real big things. So, but very similar to 4-H, yeah.
I was a jacket wearer. I had one.
Nice. Good. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Learned a lot in leadership, and I was a big public speaker, so I think I benefited quite a bit from that. And I just did all the Mormon things, right? Because that's what we all did. It wasn't really an expectation. It's just what you did. Everybody did it.
Did the Future Farmers supplant Boy Scouts, or did you do Boy Scouts as well?
I did Boy Scouts as well. Our troop of 3, sometimes 3 or 4. We would oftentimes join in with, the wards that were a little bit bigger for some of the bigger events and stuff. But I managed to eke out an Eagle Scout. It was good. I don't know that I learned a lot there that I didn't learn from other sources, but it was the program. We lived the program. That's just what you did, right?
It's interesting you say that, Dane, because we're raised in the LDS church, and especially in a little community like that. You said we just did it. We just did, what we're supposed to do as Mormons.
Right.
I've been watching so many documentaries on cults, and on like the FLDS and the polygamous communities, and I shake my head wondering, how do they stay in something like that? But then it dawns on me that I did. I was raised thinking that was the norm.
Right.
People on the outside, if they saw a documentary about the Mormons and what they practice in the temples and things, they'd shake their heads and say, how would anyone stay in that?
Yeah.
But guilty is charged.
Yeah. I never even knew it was an option to be any different or to think any different.
Right.
And when I went, I went on a mission, and when I went through the temple the first time, I think that's when I really got smacked up the side of the head with what's going on here, right? I had such a hard time with the blood oaths and the prayer circle. It just felt so wrong and
culty.
I could not. I went to the temple kind of with friends that I had made over my first year of college at Utah State in Logan. And I went home. My sister was getting married like the day after, 2 days after, something like that. And it took me that whole drive from Logan to it was back then, it was like a 7-hour drive because of, what was it, 60 miles an hour, 55, something like that. So just a discussion in my head, trying to get myself to accept what I had done, what I had willingly done, because, when you start that process, the only time you can back out is that one moment when they say, if you don't want to do this, you still don't know what you're doing, but if you don't want to do this, now's your chance to get out.
Yeah.
And that was really, really tough to come to acceptance of that. Several years later, I found out that my wife had a very similar experience. And she's like, why didn't you tell me about that? We could have talked.
That's right.
You stuff it down, you move on, and you just keep going, and you just keep living the program.
My wife had a bad experience as well, and didn't really go with other people. But I never knew. She just thought, my loved ones all do it. I must be wrong because I don't like it. Something's wrong with me. I'm just not getting it. And so did you do a year of college before you went on a mission, or?
I did. I was, I won the Southern Region Sterling Scholar competition in Utah. And that provided me a full ride scholarship to any college in the state.
Wow.
And USU seemed like a great option. It was a little bit, it was a little further away from home. So I couldn't just, go home and have my mom do my laundry. It's like I had to like live life.
So that's the Aggies.
But it wasn't as big as BYU or U of U. So back then, I think, it was 12,000 students or something like that. So it was kind of smallish, but it was still a university. Had a great time there. Met my wife on the first day of, pulling into Logan. We were invited to go to an honors retreat together. And so we were about 4 years knowing each other before we finally got married. But yeah, went to college for a year and never even thought about going on a mission, to be quite honest with you. It had been years since my brothers had served mission, and my parents were not like, you got to go, they were kind of like, do what you're going to do. And ended up finally repenting when I didn't know the bishop intimately and could talk about, the fact
I'm never going to see this guy
again, or whatever else, over the years. And he was cool. He was just like, let's, whatever. Let's
couple Hail Marys. Don't take the sacrament for a month.
Yeah. That kind of thing. And I hadn't been going to church, so it didn't really matter. So it was all good. I got my mission stuff done, went to the temple and went to Chicago. So, take the little guy that grew up in a town of 88 people and send him to, I wanted to go foreign, and that's about as foreign as you can get, Chicagoland area.
Farm boy to Chicago.
Yeah, I just remember, getting to Chicago and driving through the cornfields of Illinois. They sent me out to like one of the further reach areas, and the humidity's hanging in the air, and the AC is barely keeping the van cool, and the missionaries in the van are just like sitting there like, and I just say, what the hell did I do?
Did you have many baptisms?
We made this decision.
Did you have many baptisms?
I did, as time went on, and I hate to admit this, but I learned how to manipulate people, and I learned how to, about 18 months in to my mission, I learned the people to look for, the things I needed to say, the things I needed to do to create the emotions. And I got really good at it. I mean, you hunt down the part member, the people that had others in their lives that were really important to them. And you just start chipping away and making the promises and all that kind of stuff. And, you can get people to do anything.
Did you look through the newspapers for the obituaries?
Yeah. Well, it's like we get the ward list, and these are the part member families, and that's who I would gravitate to. And, and so you just start, like I say, you start making those promises and getting in the door.
Well, that's a good point you make. You knew what to say. You learned how to manipulate. It's a sales job. I mean,
it is. And I hated it, Randy.
You'd learn to glaze over the parts that you thought might be a hiccup for them, and emphasize you want to be with your family forever. Of course, everyone wants to be with their family forever. And I believe that's the whole hitch of the church is you pay up, you can be with your family forever. If you don't, you're
totally agree.
Trust us, you're going to get a mansion 100 years from now.
Yeah, exactly. I maybe saw one set of missionaries my entire growing up. I did not understand what missionaries did. My two brothers and a sister served missions. I didn't know what they were doing. I was so young when they went. I remember going to the first night in the mission home and the mission president saying, okay, you got to get out there, knock on this many doors, get this many first discussions, get this many people to listen to you. I'm like, what? I'm out here selling the gospel. Yeah, I did not like it. not
door to door.
Door to door.
You
Yeah.
could be selling vacuums, Bibles.
Solar. I could sell solar, you know?
For solar, yeah.
That's right. For doing something for Jesus, it just seems like a numbers game.
There was no better day. Well, there were better days, but one of the best days in my life was when I could take that name tag off and stop being a enigma to everybody that I came into contact with. People running from me because I had something that I had to shove down their throat. That was a great day when I didn't stand out to the world.
And your future wife waited for you?
So while I was on a mission, she went to Israel for a semester with BYU, and then she went to Boston on a mission herself. And then we got back together and, started life. And it was a while before we had kids. I think our youngest was born when she graduated, I graduated anyway, way back when. I got my degree in social work and then went to Washington University in St. Louis and got my master's. And my first job was at Father Flanagan's Boys Town in Omaha, Nebraska. And that's when I had my first real job, From there, we went to Texas, where I was running a emergency youth shelter and with a couple of other guys, and got kind of burned out on that. And one of the administrators there, he was a retired first sergeant from the Air Force, and he recruited me. He's like, the Air Force needs social workers. Why don't you do it? And so yeah, that was about 28 years ago that I joined up and had a fantastic career. I love my Air Force career. Started out strictly with mental health. And then as time went on, I took on, other leadership positions and did a lot of healthcare, basically healthcare administration in the Air Force. So great career, great job. We spent more than half of that time overseas. Very eye-opening when you go to different wards, different places. When it comes to Mormon stuff, it's crazy. The things you see, the cliques you are not a part of, all the stuff. And I felt really, fortunate to have that opportunity, especially living overseas. Just feel like my kids got an education that is invaluable, right? Living in different cultures and stuff. So
now, were you active throughout your Air Force career?
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, retired as a colonel about 8 months ago. So
yeah, people are going to wonder, right?
Pardon me?
People are going to wonder, how can you do your missionary work and feel bad about it, to go to the temple and feel bad about it, and then stay an active member, right?
Sure. Probably. So you want me to answer that?
We didn't know better, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe you need somebody with training in healthcare in order to explain that. So you know anybody that can do that.
So it's really a paradox, Gene. I think there is so much investment in terms of the culture that you're a part of, and for many, many people, the family that they're a part of. And you mentioned it earlier, right? We're all working for the reward that happens when you put your feet in the grave. And so there is so much thrown at you. You spend so much time and so much effort just living the day-to-day as a true believing Mormon. It is very hard to have the time or take the time to consider anything different. And so unless there's like something big that happens to you in your life that really pushes you off the rails a little bit, most people aren't looking or going to take the time to find a different way of thinking, believing, changing, or doing their life and culture and family in a different way. I think a lot of people go through that. Certain things happen and they just stuff it down. They turn it off like the light switch. If anybody's seen the Book of Mormon musical, right? You turn that shit off and you just move on because you just don't have the time and the energy to consider it.
And then are there other words other than cognitive dissonance?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that we do. We do thought stopping. We don't have other language to look at things. I think the internet actually has made that somewhat different, right? You're exposed to a lot of different things, a lot of different ideas, a lot of different thoughts. But, you know, when I left the church 14 years ago, there wasn't a whole lot of resources. The internet was there. I think, you know, Gina, I told you this earlier that I found Mormon Think and I read like every single article on Mormon Think in my process of kind of coming out of the church. And I just think about
12 years ago.
14-ish years ago. And I think about people who left before me that had no internet, you know, how they probably had to struggle and dig and find information.
They had to get a book or something from Sandra and Gerald.
Yeah, for the right. Go to the Lighthouse Ministries and get their Xeroxed copies of stuff.
And wonder if this was true or was it anti-Mormon lies?
Yeah. And that was very important to me. I wanted to go to the source. And the source, you know, sinks the ship, in my opinion, you know, when you kind of go back and look through everything. So, I think it's a very difficult process for a lot of people, especially people who have been in it a long time. It's hard to give that up and consider that there's a different thing, a different way, a different belief.
What is it, Dane, that made you realize finally, after all those years in the church, was there something that was the coup de grace?
We were living in England at the time in Lakenheath, and I was deployed. I was in Kyrgyzstan, and my oldest son, he was 16, and he was very much into student government, and this was at the time that Prop 8 was happening in California. And even though we were in England, he was reading about what the church was doing in terms of, you know, financially and getting all of the members in Utah to sink Proposition 8 pass Proposition 8 in California.
I put a sign up.
He had a very, very hard time with that. So he started on his path to figure out what's the doctrine, what are they doing, why are they doing this, and he was giving my wife a lot of challenges because you know what it's like when you go through a faith crisis, right? You gotta read and you can't stop. So he wasn't going to school, getting up on time. He was up late. And she's like, I think he's addicted to porn. And I'm like, why don't you check the browser history and see what he's doing on the computer? So she did. And she started reading what he had been reading because it was all the stuff that he could find on the history and the doctrine and all of that. And she was out within a month.
Worse than porn.
Yeah, I think you're right. And so I'm downrange and I'm all like, what are you guys doing? What are you looking at? And then I get back and they're like, just read, just look at this stuff. And I started to read, and that was really my son and his courage to stand up and say, this isn't right, this is wrong, I need to figure out what's really going on here. He's the catalyst, and I thank him every day. I've got a book coming out. I dedicated my book to him because I would still be 100% in it, I don't know, probably, if he hadn't started on that path. So yeah, Randy, that's kind of where the nexus of my exit came from.
Gotcha.
Maybe saved you $100,000 of lifetime tithing for the rest of
Well, absolutely. And very much saved me a lot of, useless stuff to do on Sundays. And I haven't cleaned a church bathroom in 14 years. So that's been nice.
That was my last job, was being the building superintendent, or whatever they call it.
Because obviously we can't pay a janitor. We have no money.
That's right. And so you left so you retired with 20 years or?
27.
27. Oh, so just recently.
Yeah. So in December, my retirement was final. And I've been, I want to give back a little bit. So I've opened a therapy practice, and I want to focus on people who are leaving religion and high demand organizations and cults. Obviously, I'll see other people as needed, but I really want to focus, because when I left, it was probably the single most difficult thing I did. There's just the fear that you're going to lose your relationships. You step away from a culture. That's what you've known. That's all you've known. And I had a very significant existential crisis, because I had to find a different meaning for life, right? Why am I here? Why do I want to keep living? Because Mormonism gives people a reason. Not that it's maybe the right reason for a lot of people, but for a lot of people it's not. But they at least give a reason of why you exist. Having to step back from that and figure that out, that was very, very challenging for me.
If you're like me, Dane, one of the things is that the God that you thought you knew ceased to exist.
Oh, absolutely.
As we knew him or her or it.
Yeah.
It suddenly, you don't have any idea of what it's all about, because you realize that you've been living a farce.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was wondering how your family took it, your siblings, and I don't know if your parents were still living at the time, but
they were. We waited a long time to tell them. My father was older, and had a lot of health problems. But some of my nieces and nephews have been to visit, found out, finally made the decision to go ahead and tell them, because I wanted them to find out from me, not through the grapevine. And it was a little rough. My mom always considered me her golden child. If anybody was going to make it, I was going to. And I think it was pretty rough for her. But after the kind of initial dust up, I have a brother that left, pretty much stopped believing, and left when he left high school. And so they had been through this before. They had learned how to love and accept him. And they did that. To be honest, I've talked a lot with him. We have a really good relationship. And I won't say that I have a bad relationship with my other brothers and sisters, but there's never been a discussion. I don't think they want to know, and that's okay. I understand that. And so it's a little surface, the relationship, but we do get together. They're great people. I love them. We have our family text string, so
Sure.
and they've accepted me, I think, to a certain degree. So it's good. I'm not pushing for anything more. It's all good.
It's kind
So
of like the elephant in the room.
yeah.
My siblings, my folks are gone, but
Hmm.
my siblings are very true believing
Yeah.
Mormons. And, I have a ton of nieces and nephews living there in Arizona. And I know they have Facebook. And I, on Facebook, have come out to the world and
Hmm.
said,
Hmm.
I'm no longer a believer in the church. And I figure if people want to unfriend me for that, all the power to them. They weren't friends in the first place.
Yeah.
But I know that they've reported to their, my sisters, but it's never brought up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I go to family things and I no longer put on a front. But sometimes I wish they would bring it up. Sometimes
Yeah.
I wish they'd ask me why, so I
Yeah.
could share that with them. But they're in that, protective bubble that they're not going to listen to anything, even if it's cold, hard fact. They don't want to hear it.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I'm at heart a social worker, and my bottom line, my operation, with anybody, my patients, my clients, my family, my kids, is self-determination. I don't want to push anybody to do anything that they don't want to do, as long as they're not hurting themselves or somebody else. And so
Sure.
I'm cool if that's the relationship that they want. I'm cool with it. It's all good. And people can make their choices and decisions. It works for them. I'm not here to take anybody's religion away, but I am here to help people who decide that doesn't work for them. And I do want to be a good, soft, solid place to fall if people need assistance. And so, uh, it is what it is, Randy. I think people are sometimes a little bit gun shy of information, and they're taught to be, and they should
Sure.
be if they want to keep those beliefs, because sometimes they just don't, hold up to scrutiny.
It's not worth an argument either.
No, yeah,
Anytime anyone has said something, oh, a little bit snarky on Facebook, I just say, you know what, if you believe in the gospel, and if you believe that it's the only true church on the earth, and that the prophet is a true living prophet, and you're happy, you're exactly where you should be.
yeah, yeah.
I don't want to talk anybody out of it.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
On the other hand, there are people that will stop buying clothing that was made in a sweatshop because they never knew before that maybe their actions were causing harm. For the fur industry, right? It
Yeah,
had to change because people didn't want to be part of killing baby seals, right? But they didn't. It wasn't until they knew that they could make that decision. So some of what, like John Dehlin says, and I'll say as well, is, I'm in favor of, full disclosure and informed consent,
Mm-hmm.
and so people do need to know. And if they know those things and they still want to do it, I say more power to them. But if they just want to say la 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 and plug their ears, I have less respect for them. It's like, it's just information. If what you believe in is good, it should be able to withstand this. But if you prevent yourself from finding out about it, then you might be ultimately causing harm to other people in your sphere, right? Like people who want to commit suicide because of they think they're not good enough,
mm-hmm.
right? Because the church says if you don't do things this way, then you're probably not going to be with your family in heaven.
Yeah, yeah.
But doesn't that tell you that they are 100% believers in the church if they're willing to take their lives knowing that they're not good enough? Then they must truly believe in the gospel and that they're the ones that are guilty of not being worthy. And that's a killer. But there's some of those that they're impenetrable. They just it just bounces. I tried one time to say something to my sister about she said the word Mormon, and I said, oh well, the prophet said that that's a win for Satan if we use the word Mormon. She says, the prophet did not say that. And I said, well, actually he did. And I sent her the quote, from the general conference. Then she saw that he said it, and then she says, yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, I forgot. I just forgot that he said that.
Nice job solidifying her beliefs there, Randy.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess the way I look at it, we all have or could access, indefinite information every single day. But if they want to know, people that are close to me, and I have no problem telling them, but I'm not a missionary. I'm not a missionary of,
ex-Mormonism.
Get out of the church. I'm not. Yeah, I don't wear a name tag. I ain't ever doing that again. But I will tell people what I know if they ask, and because I have nothing to hide, nothing to share. Not trying to hurt anybody. But you have to look at it from their perspective as well, right? Their leaders tell them, be careful. I don't know if my brothers and sisters think that I'm under the influence of Satan because I left. I assume that there's a part of them that believe that. And so if they're willing to let me come to the gatherings and will let me be in their text chain and still care about me and give the obituary at my parents' funerals, that's cool. I'm good with that. I can participate to the level that they let me participate. I love them dearly, and that's going to be okay. So, but right. I do see your point, Dean. I think that there is damage that's done, harm that's caused. And so I think all of us can be a voice for, consent, as you say, or for them to change policy when it needs to change, November 15th, or their policies on LGBTQ people, or even, women, or I think, Gene, your issue was blacks in the priesthood, all of that. I think we can say that or be a voice of, not a voice of warning. I don't want to use that word, but a voice of reason when we see those policies that hurt other people.
Right. And I know that I tell people sometimes when they say, why are you anti-Mormon? I say, I'm not anti-Mormon. I just post, science and history and current events that show that their church could change for the better.
Right.
And my hope is that this will make the church better for my loved ones, my family members and friends that are still in the church. I want it to be as safe as possible for them. I also want to start prefacing some of my conversations with them is like, what do you believe in more? Ignorance is bliss, or the glory of God is intelligence?
Another paradox.
And see if that starts a conversation.
Yeah, another paradox, Gene. The church is full of them. It's challenging.
My son, I was talking to him. I have 4 kids, 2 of which are gay, and my son in Chicago, we were talking about this very thing, and the members absolutely won't listen. And he said it's like a bee trying to convince a fly that honey is better than shit. I thought, man, that's perfect.
I love that.
It is pretty good. You heard it here first, everyone.
Right?
That is awesome. Give him a pat on the back for me. I love that.
I did. I said, I'm going to use that.
Yeah. Dane, tell us your YouTube channel again.
So my YouTube channel is at Change with Dane. Very, very simple. And then if people want to see more about what I do with therapy, you can go to changewithdane.com. I have a website that's just dedicated to my therapy practice in general.
And have you thought about writing all of your life experiences down?
So funny you should say that. I do have a memoir that is in soft release right now. Title is Growing Up with Satan. And I hope to be able to come and talk a little bit more specifically about the book with Eugene and Randy in a couple of weeks. That's just getting some visibility right now, but hope to share that again, just as a way of educating people that they don't have to be alone and isolated, and some of these ridiculous doctrines that the church hangs on to, how it can have a deleterious effect on people's psyche. And a lot of times I think it's not even intended to be that way, but the way people process and think about things, it can have a really negative effect for certain people, some of these very odd and challenging doctrines. So
that's right. For sure. We'll have you on next month, and you're going to also go to Sunstone. So if anybody goes to Sunstone, we'll make sure that they stop in at your booth.
Yeah, it'll be exciting. I'll be happy to meet more of the ex-Mormon crowd. I've been overseas serving the country for 8 years. So I'm looking forward to making more connections, and really appreciate you guys and this opportunity to talk today. It's been really great, somewhat cathartic, and I think educational. And you guys are great. Randy, I looked over your book and some of the things that you've done. Excellent work. Gene, you as well. Thanks for doing this. And
it's good practice for when you go on some other smaller podcast like Mormon Stories someday or something.
John is like, get that fly off of here.
And
right. I don't need this old guy. He's been out of the church too long. I don't want. Yeah, his story's old.
and talking about serving your country,
service, by the way.
Say that again.
We thank you for your service to the nation.
Well, thank you all for the support you give our members of the armed forces. It's a hard job. It takes people away from family and friends and what they know, and I just really look up. I mean, I've been a commander a couple of 3 times. I love the people who serve. They're so professional, just smart, excellent. I mean, they're kids, right? They're most of them 18 years old, who are just growing, but man, they have such great energy, excellent people. That is something that I miss a lot, is having that association. But I love my time, and anything that people can do to support, the folks who are active duty, either the members themselves or their families, please do it, because it's a hard job. It's a very hard job.
That's right. That reminds me of another question I was going to ask you. The guy that recruited you, you said he was a sergeant.
Yeah.
What levels did you go through?
So he was an old retired special operations first sergeant. He still can't tell me all the stuff he did, but great guy, excellent guy. Still lives in San Antonio, and we talk frequently. But I went in as a lieutenant. Spent a couple
of your
months.
College.
Pardon?
Because of your college degree.
Yes, exactly. Was recruited as a provider, a healthcare provider, a therapist, and so really spent my time as a captain, major, lieutenant colonel, and finally colonel.
So full bird, is that what they say?
Yeah. I was very fortunate, very, very fortunate. Things worked out well for me. Had great assignments all over the world, and so yeah, it was a great career.
That's right. I wanted to share with everybody, this is your YouTube channel, and I think subscribed recently and became the 17th subscriber, and we're going to try to get that moved up. There's how many episodes do you have on it?
Probably around 10 at this point. I release one every Friday, and I kind of go through a process of how people can evaluate things in their life that might not be going quite the way they want it to, and then give them some ideas about how they can make some changes that lead to greater peace and success in life. So they're about 15 minutes a piece. And I think, I don't know, it's just a nice little platform and nice little reminders that might help people. Change is difficult. We all go through it all the time. But this just might help somebody find the things that will help them make lasting changes in their life.
Do they need to go through each one sequentially, or can they jump around?
You can jump around, but it's probably better to go sequentially, because I kind of build on certain things and, talk about, jump back to something that I've already talked about. So sequentially is probably the most beneficial.
Okay, so I'll also include a link in the description to your channel and also your website, so people want more information. And
sounds great. And I think the link is broken to purchase my book on the website, but that'll be done. That'll be fixed soon. My people tell me they're working on it. So
there you go.
And people, their people, whatever, whatever.
Once everything's ironed out, we'll have you back and to talk more about your book. And
that sounds fantastic.
The story behind compiling it.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for watching. Do you have any further questions, Randy? Or
no, we just appreciate you coming on, Dane, and your story is incredibly intriguing, and so many people are going through it. I know that every time they hear someone else who's going through the same thing, it really helps them continue in their efforts. So thank you.
Thank you. I do appreciate you both, and for your time today and allowing me the opportunity.
Yeah. So everyone, like, share, and subscribe, do the things, and have a great rest of 2025. Bye-bye.
Bye, Dane.
Bye. Thank you.